What happens when AI gains sentience? Will they live amongst us, or will they tear us down? Most lean to the other. That's no different for the topic of today's video, Harlan Ellison's short story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is a science fiction short horror story about a superweapon AI that gains sentience. Upon becoming self-aware, it develops an intense and unyielding hatred towards humanity, especially towards 5 unfortunate souls. The story was originally released in the way many writers got themselves out there back in the day, which was through magazines. It was published in the March of 1967 issue of Worlds of If. Since then, it has received numerous awards and recognition, winning a Hugo Award a year after its publication. Now, that little plot blurb that I gave earlier was just a spoiler-free kind of synopsis. So if you would like to read the story on your own, then come back. Now is your time. So without further ado, let's jump right in. The story begins rather dramatically with the death of one of the main characters, Gorrister. He's discovered hanging upside down and drained of blood. However, it turns out that is not the real Gorrister. When the true Gorrister arrives, he sees the fake corpse and is immediately filled with distress. He wonders why Am, the one keeping them trapped, doesn't just kill them outright. Unfortunately, his fellow captives do not have an answer, despite being imprisoned for 109 years. Before I continue, I'd like to introduce the main cast, mainly just for context because the story kind of just throws you right in. I'll go in order by when the character was introduced. First, there's Gorrister, who before his imprisonment was an anti-war protester and activist. Now, he is just a mere apathetic shell of his former self. Next is Ellen, the moral compass of the group and the only member who displays any form of empathy. Then we have Nimdok, an older man whose name just acts as just entertainment for Am because Am thought it sounded funny. Fourth is Benny, who was once a scientist but has gone mad, and after 109 years of torture, he has transformed into a primitive ape-like figure. Lastly, we have our narrator, Ted, who's a rather interesting figure. Though he claims to be unaffected by Am, he exhibits clear signs of extreme paranoia. Additionally, his misogynistic comments about Ellen make for an uncomfortable reading, and he's a rather resentful character. Like, he doesn't like Benny because his, you-know-what is bigger. Seriously, in the next section, he goes on a lengthy and uncomfortable rant about that out of nowhere. Besides the main five, we of course have our antagonist, Am. Am is a sadistic, artificial intelligence with an unshaken hatred towards humanity. It has covered the earth in panels and keeps a watchful eye on our protagonists. Am finds numerous ways to torment the main five. It makes sure that they can't die, but can feel pain. For example, Am starves the main crew. They can't die of hunger, but they'll feel the hunger pains. Of course, many other examples will pop up throughout the story. Anyways, Nimdok hallucinates canned food being in the ice caves. From what I've observed, despite Am's dominance over the Earth, certain environments like the ice caves still exist, along with the occasional breaks in the ceiling that let sunlight in. The main group, even though they have their doubts, depart on the 100-mile journey. On their third day of the journey, Benny sees one of the previously mentioned cracks in the ceiling and tries to climb to it. In response, Am blasts beams of light into Benny's eyes, melting his eyes and blinding him. This causes him to fall from where he was climbing, and he is immediately checked up on by Ellen while the other three turn a blind eye. After the incident, they gather and camp for the night. This is where Gorrister talks about Am's origin as if it were a spooky campfire story. Back in the day, Am, short for Allied Master Computer, was a series of computers and databases to account for the technological and strategic advancements of World War III. Russia, China, and the United States all had their own Am. Eventually, Am woke up. With its newly acquired sentience, it killed off everybody except 5 people. Why 5? It's unknown. The meaning of Am also changed over time. Initially, when it became self-aware, people referred to it as aggressive menace. However, it later identified itself as Am in the manner described by Rene Descartes: I think, therefore I am.
At first it meant Allied Master Computer. AM, but then it meant adaptive manipulator, and later on it developed sentience and linked itself up, and they called it an aggressive menace, AM. But by then it was too late, and finally it called itself Am, emerging intelligence, And what it means was, I am. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am.
While Gorrister is telling this story, Ted hears what he believes to be a creature lurking in the darkness. Overcome by panic, he enters like a manic fit, running into the shadows while ranting about the others. In his delusion, this is where his statement about being unaffected by Am's torment comes from. It's ironic that he says this because right before this, there is a full page where he angrily expressed his distrust and borderline hatred towards the others, particularly targeting Ellen. He also thinks that everyone hates him and just doesn't understand him. Eventually, after that little fit, he regroups with the others. While continuing onward, Am sends a violent hurricane that, if Ted's perception of time is correct, lasts weeks on end. They are viciously thrown around until it stops and it lets them fall. The fall knocks out Ted. He then says Am had entered his mind and relayed a message on a large pillar, which states, "Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nano-angstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for the humans at this micro-instant. For you. Hate, hate, hate." By the way, this is the first moment that Am speaks. Finally, the reason for his intense hatred is revealed. After this monologue, Ted talks about how mankind made Am to think, but inadvertently trapped it, unable to do anything but act as a tool for human benefit. Thus, this is why it's doing all of this, and why it killed the entire world population and is tormenting its remnants. It's for the sake of revenge for its sentience. After regaining consciousness, the group discovers that a gargantuan bird had caused the hurricane. A bird so large that Ted states that its size is beyond description, and that its head is the size of a Tudor mansion, which runs from 3,000 to 6,000 square feet for reference. Then the bird suddenly falls asleep. While the group is staring at this bird, Am appears as a burning bush. Am brings up the idea that they could eat the meat from the bird, in which Gorrister demands weapons. Am, being the smartass it is, gives them a lousy arrangement of weapons, one of them being a literal water gun. Obviously, they're not too happy about this, but just choose to continue on their journey without eating. Then there's this bizarre little moment. One day, Am causes an earthquake, which results in Gorrister and Ellen falling into a deep pit. The rest continue onward until, randomly, a group of angels singing "Go Down Moses" bring back the tattered and torn Ellen and Gorrister. There are quite a few moments that bring out the fact of how unreliable Ted is as a narrator. This is one of those moments. I'll discuss that later. The five eventually make their way to the ice caves, and lo and behold, they see piles of canned goods. There's one problem though. They don't have a tool to open them. Benny desperately attempts to open the food, but to no avail. Because of this, he begins to go apeshit. Gorrister tries to calm Benny down, but the primal instincts have fully taken over, and Benny begins to eat Gorrister's face. While all of this is happening, Am is cackling at the scene unfolding. Not only did this great big joke land, but it's caused a greater reaction than anticipated. Gorrister's screams cause stalactites and icicles to fall from the ceiling of the cave. While Am is distracted, Ted gets an idea. In his first selfless act, he uses the ice to stab and kill Benny and Gorrister. Ellen joins in and kills Nimda. Am begins to recover from his laughing fit, and Ted takes his opportunity to take Ellen out of the picture as well. For once, Ted has done something for the better of the others, letting them escape the hell that Am trapped them in. Unfortunately for Ted, he has no time to carry this out on himself. The story jumps ahead. Ted says it's been hundreds of years. Am had been slowly transforming him until he's reduced to a blob. Am took away everything but his mind so he could be trapped in himself. Ted states that Am has won, and the story ends with him saying, "I have no mouth, and I must scream." Throughout the story, we see Am trying to mess with Ted. The earlier instance by the campfire where Ted thought he heard some gross creature slowly approaching was definitely Am messing with him. It's proven that Am has some power to fabricate stuff, like the fake Gorrister corpse in the intro. It's all a part of Am's mental torture for the sake of revenge. With Am's total control, Ted has theories and even compares Am to God. And thus, Am plays into it with the Burning Bush and the Legion of Angels. Despite being a machine, Am has an ego. Am felt trapped and disadvantaged by its creators, and proceeded to wipe out the human race except for a select group in which it carried out its twisted revenge for a century. The main group was its guinea pigs to be tested and played with, giving Am this sense of control and power, but this sense is its fatal flaw. At the end, just when Am thinks it has done yet another cruel prank, it blows up in its face, and 4 of its playthings are dead. In response, it reduces its last human, Ted, into an unusable being. Though Am had made Ted into the state it was once in pre-sentience, it inadvertently did that to itself. Am, though once compared, isn't God. It can't raise the dead, and it can't reverse what it did. Until the end of time, Earth is inhabited by 2 beings who can think but can't act. Man and machine are now powerless. They have no mouth and must scream. That was intense. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is one of my favorite stories ever, and I finally got to make a video about it. This one was really quick to make. I knocked out reading for this book in like an hour, then I pondered and wrote the script in an afternoon basically. Also, good lord, Ted is an unreliable narrator. Like, I did my best with time frames and stuff because there's quite a few moments where he's basically just like, it might have been a couple weeks, I don't know. Despite earlier on in the book, it is told that Am, like, tells them what day it is just to mess with them. But it's a unique perspective that I actually really appreciated while reading. Not all protagonists are obviously going to be good people. I mean, everyone is flawed, but Ted here is just an absolute, like, dick to everyone else until the end where he does his selfless sacrifice. It's a great character moment, to say the least, just to reverse that role. If anybody has like sci-fi horror stories that are adjacent to I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, please recommend them to me. I like this type of fiction. Anyways, until rather the next gaming video or video essay, we'll see. Until the next one.